I heard from a soldier an amazing thing. They say that the U.S. Army, they used to send soldiers into the battlefield. And then when things get messed up, what happens is everybody doesn't know what to do because the soldier is given orders. He says, let's say, we got to blow up this bridge, or we got to take out this, division. But what happens when the plans get messed up? Then, or God forbid, let's say the commander gets killed. What happens then? What do you do next? So, before they give a mission, they say commander's intent. They say the purpose of blowing up this bridge is in order, so let's say, make sure that the Germans don't cross over. Okay, so blow up the bridge, and then I can step back. Or the purpose of getting rid of this, I don't know, these Germans are so the tanks can move in. Okay, I got to make space for the tanks. If we understand commander's intent, then everything else will make sense. And our whole problem in life is we don't understand commander's intent. Velvel Green was a NASA scientist, and they used to hypothesize about going to Mars. And I believe it's going to take like 300 years or something to get to Mars. That's on a fast spaceship. And so first generation goes out and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to go to Mars and we're going to send down pictures to people. And the second generation, they're like, our parents told us that there's a world where there are people and they're waiting for us to go to Mars. And the third generation, they're like, why the hell are we going to Mars? I don't know. There's another planet closer by. Why should we be wasting the next few hundred years? So unless you have the fundamental why, and I think that's the big problem today. I mean, it's the greatest tragedy that's it's unimaginable proportions where amongst girls, I think 18 to 24, the leading cause of death, at least in the Western world, is suicide. So many people are on drugs. You know why? Because they don't know why. Because I lived in Africa many years. You don't have food, so what do you want? You want money, because money means food, and food is status. But if you always had food, then food isn't status. So why are we here? What are we doing here? And unless you have that answer, life can never be comfortable. A person has to have a why to enjoy the how. If there's no why, the how becomes tedious and loathsome, as anybody in prosperous countries can attest to. And that the why is so magnificent. It's so beautiful. All I can say is to paraphrase what Einstein said. Einstein said that we don't know the truth, as he called it, the old boss. People in the olden days would often call God the old boss. We don't know the truth of the old boss. But when we do discover it, I am sure it will be both simple and beautiful. And it truly is both simple and beautiful. And we know it from the picture of this great rabbi over here who really knew not only all science, but all Judaism, all Jewish mysticism. And he had this unbelievable ability to bring things down to the fundamental truth. And basically, the last 4 years of his talks, which he himself said were on the kind of most core, highest level within our realm. And once you see this point, you see it right throughout all the greatest revelation of Jewish mysticism, beginning with the Alter Rebbe, certainly within the Likutei Torah, a little bit in Tanya, but you see it everywhere amongst hundreds of books. And it boils down to the simplest of truths, which we are experiencing today. And unless you've experienced it, you don't know what it is. And if you've experienced it, you're usually not certain what it is, but you know it's something. And it's a little bit like Einstein said, there are only two ways to live life. One as though everything is a miracle, the other as though nothing is. So please pay attention, because this is the why. We're all in a spaceship, and we're heading somewhere. And this is where we're heading, and more importantly, why we're heading there. And so it all begins, because everything has to have a beginning, particularly something which is as they call it, intelligent design. So if there was something intelligent that designed, there has to be a purpose to the design. And the beginning, of course, is in the unconditional regard. Listen to the words I'm saying. The unconditional respect, the unconditional admiration, the unconditional knowledge of your validity and your greatness. You see, God can foresee. The past, present, and future by God are the same. So he foresaw you, and he sees you as you really are, as you know yourself to be, a real, good, wonderful, loving human being. And so, looking at that person filled with love, God said, I wish to bestow upon him everything. When you love someone, I love my children, I give them everything. But obviously, I wouldn't give them anything that would harm them. I'd only give them things that would help them. And so therefore, the world fundamentally had 3 stages. It had the stage of creation or chaos, the first 2,000 years. Then it had the stage of Torah, the stage of where God gave, particularly the Jewish people, a list of commandments. And he made them a minority. So to keep it, you had to do it despite the fact that everybody else wasn't doing it. More cool people weren't doing it. You did it only because God said to do it. Not only that, you did it often under very, very difficult circumstances. The Romans oppressed us. Tremendous sacrifice. Women would circumcise their children and jump to their death with their child. That's how precious the mitzvahs were. Because the Romans were going to kill them for doing that. People gave their lives. I would say, by easy count, at least 10 million Jews gave their lives simply for being Jews. My own family, hundreds of people from my father's side, my mother's side. So this is not a joke. This is real stuff. And by doing that, and this is a critical factor, God wanted us to earn the gift. Because if I truly love my child, I'm not going to give him $1 million. Because he'll never feel good about himself. But if I say, look, you're going to have to work for 5 years. Now, 5 years, you're going to earn $1 million. So he doesn't think I gave him $1 million. He thinks I earned $1 million. He thinks he feels good about what he has. And you know what God gave him? Gave us? He gave us the most precious gift that exists. And that is a relationship with God. So you can say a relationship with God. Well, everybody knows about God. You have emotions. You have people meditating. The answer is that's not a relationship with God. That is a perception that somehow by leaving the physical and becoming more spiritual, you're closer to God. But what if God is infinitely removed from all of your perceptions? If I say, okay, I want to have infinite money. So say I get $2, $10, $100, $1 billion. You'll always be infinitely removed from infinite money, because infinite money, $1 billion and one, are the same relative to it. They're both equally distant from infinity. So you can't get closer to God by meditating. The answer is you can get closer to God when the infinite comes to the finite, because the finite can't bridge a finite gap, because between the finite realm and the infinite realm, there's sort of a gap which the finite can't jump out of. But the infinite, being infinite, has no limitations. So the infinite can jump into the finite realm. The simple example is, I studied computer programming, so I could program a computer game. Now, those little avatars in the game, they can never jump out and start talking to me. But I could talk to them very easily. I could communicate with them. And so God can come into our world even though we can't go into God's world. And this is so critical to understand. Obviously, I'm not here to put anyone down, but to show what a mistake it is that all religions, even within Judaism, we make this mistake. We think, to get to God, I have to be aesthetic. I have to get out of reality. Say the joke about this older Jewish grandmother who goes to Tibet. She's searching for, inspiration. And she gets to the top of the mountain there, and there's some guru, and she says, I need to speak to the guru. And he said, we're really sorry, man, but the guru hasn't spoken to anybody for 3 years. He's on a vow of silence. She says, listen, old Jewish lady, come from Kansas City. I don't think I'm going to get back to see the guru again. I just want to tell him 3 words, just 3 words. So he said, 3 words. She came from Kansas City, such a trek to Tibet. Okay, let her say 3 words. So she comes in and looks up from his lotus position. He hasn't spoken to anyone for 3 years. She looks him in the eye and she says, come home, Aaron. You see, people make this mistake. They say, oh, this world, I need to leave it for spirituality. But what if the whole point of this world is to bring heaven into earth? I remember speaking to Rabbi Tzvi Freeman, who wrote 365 Meditations of the Rebbe. I really recommend his book, great book. And it's called, I think, Bringing Heaven to Earth, or he wrote a second book called Bringing Heaven to Earth. So I said, why did you say Bringing Heaven to Earth? You should have said Bringing Earth to Heaven. He says, no, that's not the goal. The goal is to bring heaven to earth.